Good evening.
Sorry, mate.
I'd like to welcome the mayor, all members, and our guests to Newham Town for our first themed council meeting for this municipal year.
Yeah.
The theme is A Clean Borough, which brings to the council's unit part 3 of the council's building a fair Newham corporate plan. I would like to welcome members of the public and press who are physically attending or watching on YouTube. I also extend a special welcome to our newly appointed Chief Executive Abby Babel, joining us this evening for her first meeting as Chief Executive of the London Borough of Newham. Housekeeping. The meeting is being filmed for broadcast on YouTube. The cameras are mainly focused on councillors and others making contributions. With regards to the meeting etiquette, unfortunately, at previous council meeting, we had interactions from the public.
Council doing so that's where she's going to speak for.
I would like to take this opportunity to remind
Okay,
that
I think
the council
tell her to go there and speak around.
business.
I think so.
If there is an interruption at today's meeting, I will ask individuals to stop and give a warning. For if this continues, I will give a second and final warning. Should this disruption continue, I will ask security to remove the person or group from the council chamber and adjourn the meeting. Members of the council, please can I ask that you indicate when you wish to speak by raising your hand. If you are invited to speak, please use the
all the kids up
microphone
there to go
or
down there. They're probably too nervous, so they'd rather they just do it from
to
there.
stand close
Oh, right.
to
So is that okay if I just
it
get
when
this
speaking.
mic back there?
Please do not move the microphone when speaking and do not approach the dais.
David.
Please can I ask members of the officers to introduce themselves when speaking? I would like to ask that everyone turns their mobile phones to the silent mode. We are not expecting a fire drill this evening, so if the alarm sounds, please remain calm and follow the instructions from the town hall staff. Can I also remind members that we have a deputation of young people with us this evening. Therefore, I ask you to be mindful in your participation. With that in mind, as Chair, I have agreed to reorder the agenda in accordance with the rules 16(1)10 to allow item 8 deputation to be considered after item 6. Any announcement from the Chief Executive? I am now moving to item 1, apologies and absence. I have received apologies for absence from Councillors Terry Paul, Simon Rush, Susan Master, Selim Petter. Is there any other apologies or absence? Councillor Carlin? Councillor Daniel?
That's what she said. Okay, fine.
Lakmanisha, do you wish to give an apologies? Councillor Imam. Councillor Joy Lapita has been mentioned. Councillor Stipulation, thank you. I am now moving to item 2, declaration of interest, page number 19 to 12 on your agenda. Are there any members wishing to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or any other interest they may have in any matter which is to be considered at this meeting? I'm now moving to item last meeting held on the 19th of July 2023, pages number 30 to 32 on your agenda. I move as a current report the minutes of the last ordinary meeting of the council held on the 19th of July. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. All those against, please raise your hands. Any abstention? Agree the meeting minutes. I am now moving to item 4, announcement by the chair. Before I begin, I wish to convey my gratitude to all colleagues, officers, all members of the community for your support to me and my family during my difficult times that I was going through. Strong Daniel, Libya and Morocco's earthquake. Since the last meeting, we have witnessed 2 natural disasters causing death and misery of hundreds of thousands. The council expressed its deep sorrow to the victims and the communities affected by the storm Daniel, which struck Libya last week, causing the extreme flooding. This follows on the form of the tragic earthquake which struck Morocco on 8th of September. Council sends its deepest sympathies to all those affected, and I ask those who can to stand for a minute of silence, please. Thank you. I can report that since the last meeting of the council on 19 July 2023, I have undertook a number of visits and attended events in my role as a first citizen of the borough, most notably 6th of August, Bangla in Haringey, 13th August, Church Corporate, London Register Centre, 14th of August, reception of honor of the council from Town Hamlets, 1st of September, grand opening of FCG in Barton Road, 9th of September, Bangladesh Association Newham award giving ceremony in Islam, 9th of September, Sabco 30th anniversary in Forest Gate, 14th of September, charity dinner party in Romford Road, 17th of September, BGM observation of Sri Welfare Association in Town Hamlets, 18th of September, citizen advice of morning in Kennington. Black History Month. The council has published its Black History Month program for October. Black History Month is an annual celebration of the contribution made by Black, African, and Caribbean communities in the borough, nationally and internationally. The national theme for this year is celebrating our sisters, spotlighting the achievements and success of Black women who are often forgotten heroines. I invite you all to visit Newham's website and join in one of the many private events. I am now moving to item 5, announcement by the Mayor Roxana Fias. I invite Mayor Roxana Fias to address the council to make an announcement. You have 10 minutes. Thank you.
and members of the public, welcome, including the young people that are with us this evening to present a deputation about, no doubt, a very important issue. Colleagues, I wanted to firstly start by similarly congratulating and welcoming
Just to let you know, I'm having issues with network, so it's dropping on YouTube.
Noted that I
But I
slightly
am
hesitated on the surname because
so
I
we
couldn't
can
imagine it.
upload and
That's something that I've got to learn, and I didn't want to do that at her first full meeting of council.
I'm not on Wi-Fi because the Wi-Fi wouldn't be strong enough anyway, but I think just with the sudden influx of all the phones, it's just completely dead.
Getting stuck in and doing lots and lots of discovery. I'm sure that in due course, outside of her meetings with members of the council, she's very much looking forward to meeting with a whole wide array of community and resident groups that reflect the beautiful diversity of our borough. The other thing that I just wanted to advise members this evening, you'll recall that as part of announcements that I made in May 2022, I stated that there would be a comprehensive review of the current constitution so that it would be fit for purpose for the 21st century. The process is underway, and in May of this year I provided an update that
Yes, it's a network issue and there's nothing I can really do right now.
Including committee allocations. In light of the by-elections that had taken place in July, I'm pleased to announce to members that a report will be coming to full council in October. Colleagues, as you are all aware, this meeting of full council is themed, and we'll be having no doubt a discursive debate about the importance of a clean borough. There are things that all of us can be doing as residents, as citizens, as activists, as representatives in changing the behaviour of our neighbours, our friends, members of our media, as well as extended family, alongside the contributions that the council can be making and is making in terms of investments and the response to the vexed issue of fly tipping in our borough. To note that the Clean Borough campaign that we'll be discussing today, it's important to understand that it's located in the context of a set of really important strategic priorities as set out in the Building a Fairer Newham corporate plan. And it's very much linked fundamentally to our response to the existential threat facing humanity and the planet, and that's the threat of climate emergency. Later this year at full council, we will be bringing a comprehensive climate emergency just transition annual report that will set out 10 key actions that we will be mobilising our borough, our residents, our voluntary community, faith organisations in Newham alongside our business partners, be they anchor or local businesses. It's going to be really important that we not only mobilise across tonight's theme, A Clean Borough, but also in our response to the climate emergency that faces us, but ensuring that as we work towards our net zero 2045 goals, it's done in a way that's anchored in the sense of justice and fairness, hence us talking about a just transition to our sustainable journey. So I am looking forward very much to the debates taking place tonight, and on that note I'll conclude with some good news, and I trust the members here will join me in congratulating the chair of council. She has echoed her thanks and appreciation because she's been through the hardest of times as a consequence of the passing of her mother and previous to that, the passing of her father. But I'm sure you will join me in the joyous news because Councillor Rahima Rahman will be expecting her first child in the coming months. So could you please join your hands and join me
Thank you very much, much appreciated. I'm now moving to item. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, I'd like to take this opportunity to call Councillor Zulfikali, Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, to make an urgent statement regarding the Council's financial position. Councillor Ali, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. Colleagues and our readers, you may have seen an article published by the Mirror on the 14th of September, and which was picked up by my husband. As Cabinet Lead for Finance and Resources, I feel it's important for me to stand up here in front of you and give you a degree of assurance that the article that was published does not reflect the reality on the ground as far as the Newham Council is concerned. This article was published by the local government, Office of Local Government, which is effectively those of you who may remember the good old days when the government set up Audit Commission and the best value regime, which they subsequently abandoned. And this is in fact in a replica of that, and they started to look at the local government funding rather than actually supporting the communities. They're simply looking at how the local government is spending the money, limited resources that they have. The data looks at local authorities' debt relative to their budget. They produced a list showing councils' debt as a percentage of their core spending powers, which is a measure of their budget. For instance, the report highlights Woking Council as with the highest ratio, which is around 150 times more than their spending powers. And by the way, if any of you had time over the weekend to look at these articles, you would have noticed the Guardian also published the top 20 local authorities, and a number of those are actually Tory control, and some of those, surprisingly, are where there are cabinet members, ministers, including Michael Gove, in one of those areas. So all we know is that journalism leads to some sort of sensational news, and this is being used as an opportunity, sadly, to spread out misinformation or inaccurate information, the basis upon which the government has published this information. Newham's position is 98 out of well over 300 authorities in the country. It is hardly surprising, given the level of need in Newham, that someone has decided to pick Newham as one of the authorities to focus on. Let me get into the statistics and to show how reliable the data is. It uses the government's preferred measure of core spending powers. And let me define what that spending power is. I may run out of time, but I thought I had more than 3 minutes, but let's try. Core spending measure is the core revenue funding available for local authorities, services including council tax and local retained business rate. In Newham's case, the recorded figure was 284 million, somewhere below our actual general fund budget, which accounts for other additional grants and income sources. And local authorities for the years have told the government that the core spending power is not the good measure to see how local authorities are performing, because it understates and underestimates the debt ratio, which is artificially higher, bearing in mind that the core spending level is higher. So with regard to treasury debt, I am pleased to say that this has been reducing since 2018. It was at around 900 million at the end of financial year 2018. And this stood at 797 in 2022. So you can see the reduction that we achieved despite rising interest rates and other difficulties that we had. But clearly, that is rising because we are committed to fund a number of capital projects, major projects which are much needed. And that is why the borrowing is likely to increase. And with regard to the other issue that the way the government measures is the debt servicing as a proportion of core spending powers. And in Newham's case, the published figures show that there is a reduction. In 2021-22, which is the date against the benchmark, we have 14.7%, whereas we had 15.5 in 2018. This means the interest costs as proportional to our budget have been falling despite rising interest. And this is hardly a sign of a financial mismanagement.
Your time is up.
But in fact, it demonstrates that our financial control and governance and management is very well. The Mirror have picked up increased borrowing in different areas.
Absolutely, your time is up.
Okay, I'll be very quick here. So I'd just like to assure members that our financial controls are robust. We have good plans. Our capital program is very thoroughly vetted. We have good challenges both at cabinet level, officer level, and they all deliver return. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. I'm now moving to item 6, announcement by the Chief Executive Abi Bago. I invite Abi Bago to address the council to make an announcement.
I will keep my announcement brief. Hopefully everyone can hear. Thank you, Chair. So my surname is said Bago, so silent G. It's an absolute honour to join you all this evening for my first full council as Chief Exec of the London Borough of Newham. I just wanted to thank you all for the warm welcome, all the councillors and members that I met last week and the workforce. I was overwhelmed. I think the Mayor mentioned my first week was a whirlwind. But I was overwhelmed by the commitment and the dedication from the staff that I have met so far. And I look forward to working with them to serving the community as we go forward. I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank the children for your contribution to today's meeting. And thank you so much for showing me your wonderful pictures. They put an absolute smile on my face this evening. And I just want to thank your families for supporting you to come here tonight. Your contribution is really important to us, so thank you again.
Thank you, Abi. I'm now moving to item 8, deputations. The interim chief executive agreed to a request to have a deputation. The request is from Manor Park Politics School to address council. Firstly, I will call upon Councillor Mariam Daud to introduce the deputation, which will be followed by 3 minutes video from the school and the deputation. I now welcome the representative from the Manor Park Politics School.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here to introduce the next deputation, which is going to be given by some children from Manor Park. These children are part of a program I founded called the Politics School. They spent their summer holidays learning about politics, about how laws are made and how a country is governed, and how they can help make the changes that they want to see in our community. Young people are treated as though they're not part of society just yet. They're told that they're not leaders yet, but are leaders of the future. And they are future leaders, but they're also leaders now and part of society now. Young people should be engaged on the decisions which affect them and taught about politics in schools, since the decisions we make here affect younger generations more than anyone. Teaching children about politics and allowing them to express the world that they want to see transforms their self-confidence and self-belief, and it can also work to transform our entire society. With that being said, I'd like to present a video in which our students share their ideas in their own words on how to make Newham a cleaner place. Thank you.
You're watching from the Politics School, and with your host, me. We're reporting from Manor Park. We have a student here from our program. Let's learn more. So tell us, what's a politics school?
At the Politics School, we learn about politics and how to make positive changes to the world around us.
And what are you changing today?
We're exploring ways to make Newham more cleaner. There are too many litter bugs.
As we see here, litter is a very problem here. So what do you think of this?
rubbish.
What are your ideas to keep the street clean?
We want to change people's behaviour so they don't litter anymore.
That's great.
I think each street should have a neighbourhood watchguard appointed to report any litter crimes back to the council. I also think that litter picks should be made as an activity in schools.
We should have dust sweepers for the city. It should be made out of AI and it should move around easily.
We should make sure we educate people on recycling and the benefits of a cleaner street and disadvantages of rubbish.
Oh no, my drink is done. I need to throw this in the bin. If only there was someone or something to help me. Can't find a bin nearby? Use the Love Clean Streets app to help you find a bin nearby. It can help you also reduce the amount of waste on the street. Thank you. Now I can put my trash in the bin.
Litterbug is trying to tell us that she has converted into a good litterbug. And she is saying if you use games to pick up litter, for example, every skip she does, you throw one in the bin, it can be fun.
We should have an app that lets pedestrians earn points so they can use that for cash day for vouchers via QR code for recycling.
We want to show people that it's easy and fun to clean up the streets, so we formed a clean-up crew.
Truly inspiring stuff. We'll be right back after a short break for the weather forecast. Over to you, Alithia.
Thanks, Megdad. We have some interesting news from the weather forecast. It was going to be a chance of rain and cloudy, but now we've picked up the litter. It's going to be sunny.
Well, you heard it, folks. It's a sunny day because of the politics school. If I were you, I would definitely go to the council meeting. That's all it for today's news report. Goodbye. Are we ready?
Live from Manor Park.
Sounds boring though.
She's trying to tell us that for every skip that she does, you can put litter.
I am the hungry caterpillar and I'm going to eat everybody in the world.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Thank you so much for your interesting deputation and really excellent video. You are a credit to your families and for the London Borough of Newham. We as a councillors know the borough is in the good hands with you as the next generation of the public servants. Thank you again for giving up your time and speaking to us this evening.
Chair, we're happy to take questions if members have any.
Is there any? Joshua, Councillor Joshua, yeah.
I'm going to remove the microphone so that they can actually use this. Oh, it's taped to the stand.
Sorry, I'll bring it down afterwards. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for that amazing video and your contributions over the summer. I have to say that visiting Manor Park's Politics School was the highlight of my summer. You won't find a harsher set of critics, but a more creative set of ideas for what we should do in Newham. And I wanted to ask the class of 2023 of the Manor Park Politics School, if you could get everyone in this room to do one thing in Newham, what would it be?
The question was one thing that you would like to see the council do. All your answers are amazing. Who wants to go first? Emily, you put your hand up.
Like pick up litter from the floor.
Go on.
Maybe if like in school, like we could take out 5 or 10 minutes and we could like do litter picking.
Our litter bugs idea was that we should design Newham vans with the artistry that they've presented to us today to encourage people to actually throw their rubbish in the bin and to make it more exciting for people to throw rubbish away.
And to make every child have a right to have a happier place to live.
Wow. Very amazing answers. I've got Councillor Carlin to ask questions.
Thank you, children, for your presentation this evening. I have one quick question regarding your political school journey. What would you say your one thing was your most favourite thing that you did during your time at the political school?
It was really fun when we used the smoothie bikes. My favourite part was when we went around the neighbourhood picking up litter.
Litter pick?
Zaid is our youngest student. He's 5, by the way.
My favourite part was designing posters.
I liked doing the litter picking because I like our streets to be clean.
To be the main role inside the movie. Nice picture.
Visiting like the middle of London and visiting Parliament.
I think more children should be invited to the politics school.
Is there any more questions? I will take the last one. I'm asking the members, not the public, please. Sorry. Thank you.
I would just like to pass on the comment by our lovely parent who said that, is there a way that we can make this so that more children in Newham can access education like the politics school? That's a question more for members than for our children here today, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mariam Dan. I'm now moving to item 7, Newham Partners Update. We have 2 partners updates for this evening. Firstly, I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Anne Scott from Keeping Britain Tidy. Keep Britain Tidy is a UK-based independent environmental charity. The organisation's campaigns to reduce litter, improve local places, and prevent waste. Good evening, Dr. Scott. You have up to 10 minutes, after which members will have question time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting me this evening. It's an honour to be here talking to you in Newham, and thank you to members of the public who are here as well this evening. So I've been asked to talk around the issue. Obviously, tonight's theme is A Cleaner Borough, and I'm going to touch on 4 specific areas that I've been asked to speak about. So if we can move on to first and again. So first point I'm going to talk about is, what does the national picture look around fly tipping? So I'm going to kind of bombard you with some figures. I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see them on the screen, but I will talk around them very quickly so I can get everything in 10 minutes. Sorry, I need to see my figures as well. So, how many fly tips did local authorities deal with in England per year? We're looking back over the past few years, the years that we've got full data for the country. It's around about 1 million fly tips per year. It went up in 2020, the COVID lockdown year, and in the last available stats, it went down slightly, down by 4%, but it's kind of consistently hitting around 1 million fly tips per year. This distribution is quite unevenly spread across the country. London has a much more significant problem with fly tipping than any other region in the country. And I always talk about this with London boroughs. I think a lot of boroughs feel that, you know, we've got a unique problem. We've got so much fly tipping. Well, it's everywhere. It's across London. It's across the country. But obviously some boroughs and some councils feel it much more acutely. What do fly tips consist of? They are generally, most fly tips, and I know this is the case in Newham, consist of household waste. Now, that doesn't necessarily give you an idea of whether, you know, a person put the waste out themselves or they paid someone else to get rid of it and they then dumped it. But ultimately, around 2/3 of fly tips is household waste. Again, it goes up and down over the years, but relatively consistent there. Most fly tipping also occurs on highways and pavements. That's the most common fly tipping location. And in terms of how big they are, the majority of them, the largest category rather, at around about 1/3 is a small van load. So we're talking about nationally, fly tipping is generally quite small. I know in Newham it's very much bags of waste out on streets. You are much more confident it is very much householders putting it out. And then in terms of what enforcement action is taken, I think this is quite a stark picture across the country. There's only around about 500,000 enforcement actions per year, which doesn't sound very much when you're talking about the whole country. And in the last available year, the value of the fines for fly tipping is less than £1 million, £840,000 across the whole country, which, you know, indicates the kind of the legal side, the enforcement side of how we're managing fly tipping is not really keeping up with the scale of the problem. So that's what the national picture looks like. In terms of hard numbers, what do people think about it? Well, for 40% of the population, nationally this is, 40% say fly tipping is a problem in their local area, which actually ranks below the issue of litter. And around a quarter of the population think that reducing fly tipping is one of the 3 most important actions in creating a better local environment, and that's sitting behind reducing plastic pollution, reducing waste and tackling climate change, and that's gone down from a similar survey that we did a few years prior. So that's kind of how it sits nationally in the public consciousness. So how do things look in Newham? Well, there's quite a number of stats on this table, and I just want to focus in on the litter measure. So as an organisation, we audit basically how clean Newham streets are, and this is happening every quarter. And the trends, when you look at litter, so the percentages here are the number of streets that are failing the acceptable standard for the presence of litter, as defined by the Code of Practice on Litter and Refuse. And that's been as high as just under a quarter, 24% in quarter 4 in 2021-22, and down to less than 5% in the first quarter of this financial year. So some big improvements there in terms of the cleanliness of streets as is defined with litter. How does it look in terms of fly tipping? Well, you can see that the yellow blocks on the next slide, which is coming on, is showing a decrease in numbers of fly tips, reported fly tips, but kind of starting to stagnate. So the first block is just under 38,000, and the last quarter figures down to just under, I think it's around 28,500. So kind of kicked off 10,000 fly tips there, which I think is no mean feat, but still some way to go to meet the reduction of 50% manifesto target. Thinking now about the problem of fly tipping and why people do it, we've done a lot of research at Keep Britain Tidy into looking at why people dump their waste out on the streets. That was kind of where we started on our journey of trying to address this problem. And we put all of this work together in a publication that's available on our website called Beyond the Tipping Point. And here we have kind of distilled what we found through various pieces of research into 8 specific insights into what drives fly tipping behaviour, and conversely how you can flip that to try and change people's behaviour. Now here, apologies for the very wordy slide, and I will just kind of rattle these off, otherwise we're not going to get through the final points. So we've got 8 insights here, so I'm just going to say what the insight is and what that means for trying to take action on fly tipping. So first of all, people don't think of small-scale householder fly tipping when they see or hear that word. So for most people, a black sack out by a public bin wouldn't necessarily recognise that as fly tipping, even if they kind of even know that word. So it's really important here to think about the imagery you're using in your communications, what you're saying about fines and threats. So if your problem in Newham is black bags on streets, then you need to show that in your imagery. We also suggest not talking about fly tipping without saying dumped rubbish or clarifying what that means, or sometimes not even using the word fly tipping at all. Dumped rubbish it kind of says exactly what it is. Secondly, there's an expectation that fly tips will be collected quickly and without repercussion. So on this point, it's really important that councils communicate clearly in a targeted manner that fly tipping is not acceptable and it's not tolerated. Number 3, people perceive fly tipping to be low impact. So this kind of perception that, well, hang on, there's trucks driving through the borough all the time picking up rubbish. What difference does it make if I shove my chair out on the street? So here it's really important to build new narratives around the real costs of fly tipping. So there is a real financial cost to all local authorities of clearing away fly tipping.
Dr. Scott, you have 1.5 minutes remaining.
Thank you. And we need to communicate that to the public. Number 4, some council policies are unintentionally driving fly tipping. So actually, the better you are at clearing away fly tipping, it can reinforce the idea that, I can put rubbish out on the street and the council take it away with me. So that's a really tricky one to address. Some types of fly tipping are seen as more socially acceptable. So a bag is okay, sofa less so. It's really important to tackle these excuses head on. The hassle factor is a significant driver of fly tipping. So here you need to look at policies, interventions, actions that tip the balance. Try and make not fly tipping more attractive than fly tipping. Penultimately, some households are not managing their waste effectively. There is more stuff and more waste to get rid of than ever before, and residents need to be supported in a holistic way to manage their waste. And lastly, perceived threat of enforcement is low. So people think, well, actually, I'm not going to get caught. So we have to increase the perceived threat of enforcement. Very quickly, just to talk about tackling fly tipping and what boroughs like Newham can do. Firstly, there is no magic bullet. If it was easy to tackle fly tipping, you wouldn't be having a meeting on it this evening. Your officers would have done it. There'd be nothing to talk about. It is a really challenging problem.
Dr. Scott, I'm afraid your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I think we'll allow extra minute to Dr. Scott. Is that okay with all the members? Is that agreed? Okay.
So firstly, two recommendations, really broad principles here. Firstly, it's really important to have a strategy to address your problem. You need to identify your problem, your objectives, your plan of action, how you're going to measure progress against that. And that plan of action should include behaviour change interventions, education, engagement and enforcement, as well as clearing away fly tips. And actually, in a survey that we did recently, only 35% of councils in England reported that they had a strategy or a plan in place. So the fact that you're having a meeting dedicated to this, you do have a plan of action is a really positive point. And secondly, we also recommend that all authorities have a system of recording all fly tips cleared. You can't improve on a problem that you're not accurately monitoring, and we do work with lots of authorities across the country who are not monitoring what they're clearing away, and I know you are here in Newham. So some of the work that we've done with Newham in the past, so we've built on those behavioural insights that I talked about earlier to develop new strategies, new interventions to tackle fly tipping. Newham have worked with us at Keep Britain Tidy, they've worked without us, and we've had a number of successes with those programmes of work, including winning a Local Government Chronicle Award back in 2001. So I'm sure you'll have seen the CSI tape intervention, the stencil intervention, the no waste on streets intervention had really, really good positive reductions in fly tipping in those pilots, and scaled versions of these and interventions having really positive effects as well. In terms of what other councils are doing and what you can learn, there's a new kind of thread of evidence around beautification. Make places nice, people are less keen to fly tip. So that's been tried in Newham with the beautification of bring banks, grass tops on banks, average 23% reduction in fly tipping. Also tried in Dover, measured a 100% reduction at 2 sites, 83% reduction at 1 site. And lastly, just to touch on CCTV, I know as members you might get asked about this all of the time. I think the general public do think that CCTV is the answer to all problems, particularly fly tipping. Why can't you put a camera in that will catch the people? And I think up until recently there wasn't a lot of really robust evidence about whether this actually works or not, but there's been a number of case studies come through recently funded by DEFRA where there's some really good examples of CCTV working in very urban environments. I've only chosen urban environments here to show you. So cameras in back alleys, redeployable cameras, and I think what's a theme from all of that work is that it was the cameras and signage. So you're kind of warning people that there are cameras there as well. But I think there's some really good work going on there that you can learn from in Newham.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. In view of the time constraints on our meeting, I'm suggesting there will be 2 to 3 questions I will be taking. Councillor Annette, again.
Thank you for that Oops. That's better. Thank you for that presentation. That was great. I've got 2 questions I want to ask. Okay, you said that some council policies are unintentionally driving fly tipping. In abstract, which policies tend to do that, and which in Newham might we be doing?
Okay. Thank you. So by that, it's a range of policies. So it can be things like, in inverted commas, making it difficult to use HWRCs, household waste centres, and that could be things like your opening hours. Sometimes it can be viewed as booking systems, can be viewed as making it difficult. But in particular, I think we're talking about waste on streets. So I'm not sure if this is the case in Newham, forgive me. But some councils will street clean and then leave bags on streets ready for other crews to come and take that away. And anyone knows that bag out on the street, what happens to it? It grows, it turns into 4 bags, it turns into a pile of other stuff. So I really think there is definite benefit, and then we showed that through the no waste on streets, of getting waste off streets. The less you can have it there, the cleaner your streets are, it's sending that message that waste does not go on streets. So I think that's a big one. But yeah, it can be broader services as well. Lack of capacity at flats, all that kind of thing. Kind of looking at your services in the round. Are you making it easy for people to do the right thing as opposed to fly tipping?
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Are there any other questions from any other members? Councillor Joshua and Godfrey.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you for that presentation. I'm most fascinated by the behavioural change work that Keep Britain Tidy does. It's a snappy campaign. It's one that's known nationally. It brings a sense of pride to how you want the country to look and feel. The litter and the fly tipping in our borough doesn't just appear there. Let's be frank, people put it there, and people put it there because they ain't got any respect for their community and where they live. And that's the issue that we're tackling as a borough. We want people to take pride in their neighbourhood. We want people to be empowered to use the services that we hopefully make as easy as we can afford to do to access. But I'm fascinated by the behavioural change because that is what will drive the biggest decrease of litter and fly tipping in this borough. So what would you recommend that we do beyond a campaign, beyond trying to capture Keep Britain Tidy or Keep Newham Tidy? What can we do to really push and encourage the communities that we have in this borough to care about how it looks and care about how it feels so they don't litter or fly tip?
Thank you. I think that's a really big and important challenge. I don't think it's kind of as simple as saying let's have a civic pride campaign. I think it is about taking action on all of these different aspects of fly tipping and driving a marked improvement. And I think as streets get cleaner and the borough tidy, then people will generally get on board on that. I think all walks of people do care about where they live. It's perhaps at a different ranking depending on your life situation. But I think you have to kind of lead by example and make those positive changes, and that's how you will take people with you.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Initially, I said I will take 2 to 3 questions, but I can see there's 3 more members are waiting to ask questions. So, shall we, all the members, do you agree to give extend? Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Louise Godfrey.
Just to say as well, if there's any questions that haven't been answered, if people want to drop me a line, I'm very happy to answer questions via email.
Well, that's great.
Dr. Scott, thank you so much for your presentation, which was really, really on point, I thought, and spoke to a lot of the things that we're seeing on our streets. But it's interesting to know that this is sort of something that's a national issue. But we do see it here in Newham, so it's really, really insightful. That presentation is great. I'm definitely going to take some stuff away from it. I wanted to know, is there a link between fly tipping and houses of multiple occupation? And if so, how can we make it so that landlords are more responsible?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a link. I'm not sure to what extent it's borne out with really robust evidence. I mean, perhaps you'll know half the time you might even know, it's an HMO, but it's not on any kind of list. So how do you create a data set which clearly links HMOs to fly tipping? But I think anyone who works in this sector would say, yes, there's absolutely a problem there. Again, I don't think that's an easy nut to crack. I think licensing absolutely plays a role in that. And I know there are versions of licensing which do put duties on landlords for the responsible waste management of their tenants within the private rented property or within the HMO. So I think that's an important thing to look at. And I know that Newham are trialling running a bulky waste collection specifically for landlords, and that's the first time I've heard of such a service. I think that's a positive step forward, and hopefully you will have some positive results there.
Councillor Mahmoud Mirza.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. I really like and appreciate the advice and guidance you have provided. Would you think, because Newham is kind of a multinational people living here, don't we need to start delivering leaflets in their own languages? Most of the residents don't, the first language is not English here. Is it not possible, you reckon it will make a difference if we, send a literature to their house, educate them? You did mention education, and I also think should we start this from the primary school as well? And then the last thing would you think is the free bulky waste collection will make any difference? Because a lot of stuff, being thrown out on the streets is a bulky waste, and not everybody's got logistics to take it to the tip point, and it also costs a lot of money as well. So would you think this make any difference? Thank you.
Yeah. So I think about educating children, that's always really positive. We had a great representation from the children here tonight. Lots of children get this. It's important to tap into that and hopefully help them spread the word to their families. On the issue of communicating in different languages, obviously in Newham you have many different languages spoken, which can make it very tricky. Are you providing information in every single language or just the main ones? I think there's definite benefits to that approach. People have to know about what they should be doing in their waste, and if they can't read written English, then that obviously does make it very difficult. I think a targeted approach would always be useful. So where in communities where particular languages are spoken, then obviously you've got a slight shortcut there to what languages you may need to communicate in. But all communication should be plain English, as visual as possible, not particularly text heavy. She says having very text heavy slides tonight. And then the other point about free bulky waste collections. One of the insights that I referred to is about the hassle factor. It's really important to think about the hassle factor in the round and not just being about cost. So you could have a free bulky waste service, I'm talking about any authority, could have a free bulky waste service that is incredibly inconvenient and difficult to use. So if I have to register with my council, and to do so I need my council tax bill, and then I need a password, and then I've got to find the page on the website, and then I've got to ring up because actually they don't do an online booking. Then they're only going to come in 3 weeks, at 3 o'clock on a Thursday, and actually I'm at work then. And then they want my sofa out on the street the night before, and I live on my own, so I can't take my 3-piece suite out. You've made it really hard for that person, whether it's free or not. So as far as I'm aware, the evidence around free bulky waste collections as driving down fly tipping is not there. There are boroughs who've had free bulky waste. I know you've had it in Newham, and moved to charges, etc., and it's not made that clear difference to fly tipping. So I think on paper it seems a sensible thing, give free collections and there'll be less fly tipping. But I don't think the relationship is that direct. And I think it's about convenient services in the round. Make it as easy as possible for people to do the right thing. But of course that does come as at a cost. For example, if you want to offer free bulky waste collections.
Councillor Miraz Patel. And this will be the last question for Dr. Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very quick. Thank you, Dr. Scott, for that very interesting presentation. For the benefit of members and the public that may not know much about Keep Britain Tidy, could you just give a quick synopsis of what Keep Britain Tidy is, how it is independent, and some information around that? Many thanks.
Problem. So we are an environmental charity, been in existence for almost 60 years. We are independent in the sense that we don't receive any kind of government grant. We are funded through charitable grants and the services that we supply to councils across England. We have a broad agenda to eliminate litter, reduce waste, improve local places and help people live more sustainably. We run the green flag for parks scheme, blue flag for beaches. We haven't got any of those in Newham. We run the Eco Schools programme in England as well. So we have a really broad set of activities around helping make places greener, tidier, cleaner for the benefit of everybody.
Thank you for your time with us, Dr. Scott. We know that you are extremely busy and we appreciate you giving up your time to speak to us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks.
Now, can I welcome our second partner update from Nick Telly, Honorary Professor, University of College London. Good evening, Professor Telly. You have up to 10 minutes, after which member will be asking 2 to 3 questions.
Yeah, take questions.
The dice is there for you.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, you can start. You can start, but microphone is for you there.
I need to have it.
Can somebody assist him, please?
Do you want me to speak? Well, gosh, this technology. Thanks very much for inviting me. It's great to be in Newham. I spent quite a lot of my early adult life in Newham. I was a student at West Ham. I taught at Little Ilford School very briefly just after I graduated. I taught at East Ham. My wife started her teaching career at Portway School, so we've had a lot to do with Newham. But in a way, the most interesting thing, and the thing that really, I think, did any of you go to Make a Camp? Any older, you went to Make a Camp. Well, you'll recognise what I'm going to say. We helped. You do? Oh, well, that is my wife, is the woman with the, I mean, she doesn't look quite like that any longer, but nor do I look as I did. And that's my daughter, but another teacher and some of the kids in the background too. Oh, right. Well, there we are. I thought somebody would have been there. But most of what I want to say, the key message I want to get across, all comes from Make a Camp. We went there without children in 1970, and we knew it was going to stop in 1980 when we had a new political leader in this country who was very keen on reducing public expenditure. Anyway, but let's say no more about that. But we went there in 1970, and what we did was to take roughly 150 children from Newham to go on holiday at Make a Camp, which is just the other side of the Tamar in Cornwall. And we took these children there who were lovely. They loved the holiday. They loved being there. They loved the open air. They loved the freedom that was offered to them. But we did have a problem to do with waste. And the problem was this. The children had their breakfast, and after they'd had their breakfast, they were given their packed lunches. Their packed lunches comprised a sandwich, a piece of fruit, a drink, and a bar. And what happened is that the children would walk down from Make a Camp to the beach, coarse sand and king sand, the beaches at the bottom of the cliff. And what the children would do, the children are not necessarily, I'm sure the children who were here earlier are not like this, but the children that we took to Make a Camp really weren't particularly hungry when they just had their breakfast. So they ate the chocolate bar, and then they threw the rest of it by the wayside. And it made us very unpopular with local people, unsurprisingly, because they didn't like this dumped waste. They didn't like this littering. And this happened every year. And in the end, we cracked the problem. And we cracked the problem in a rather straightforward way. What we did, can any of you guess? What we did, it depends what year you were there, what we did was to take the sandwiches down to the beach rather than give them the sandwiches after breakfast. And the problem was cracked at a stroke. So we cracked the problem of the waste that the Newham children were throwing away as they went down to the beach from Maker Camp. But it was a running sore right up until the mid-1970s. It was a headache. We threatened the children, we told the children off, we appealed to their better nature, but the problem persisted. The problem was only solved when we made it an unnecessary problem by not giving them the sandwiches and their packed lunches when their tummies were full. And not surprisingly, I think my children would have been much the same. They tossed it away. So in a way, that tells us pretty much all we need to know about waste disposal. It echoes the point, well, the point that Anna said she did all sorts of things, which she made a brilliant presentation. But the phrase that she came out with, which I echo most strongly, is it's good to make doing the right thing easy. Making it easy to do the right thing is important in all sorts of ways. It's important in public health, it's important in crime prevention, it's important in dealing with waste. It's very difficult to change people. It's enormously difficult to change people, but you can change situations much more readily than you can change people, and you can change situations to make it much easier to do what you want people to do. So we, in the nature of waste, all sorts of things try and make it easy for people. Having the civic amenities, the waste disposal sites open at times when people want to use them. Having bins where people have got litter just by bus stop. Well, not any longer, but when I was younger, bus tickets were a huge problem. And you got rid of the problem of bus tickets by making sure that there was somewhere where people could put bus tickets. So making people, the thing that you started off with saying is that you wanted to change people. You wanted to make people good people by making them not want to dump stuff. It's enormously difficult to change people. It's much, much easier to change situations. It's much, much easier to make it convenient, easy for people to do the right thing, and to make it difficult, awkward, risky to do the wrong thing. So my strong advice to you, for what it's worth, is to try and focus not on trying to make people better. That's hard. It's hard in relation to crime. It's hard in all sorts of ways. But to try and make it as easy as it possibly can be for them to do the right thing, and to make it risky and difficult and unrewarding to do the wrong thing. This is the problem that they have now around Maker Camp. This isn't the responsibility of kids from Newham. This is the responsibility of people who've gone much later. And the fact that there are all these tins is witness to the fact that problems don't disappear overnight. Let me go back to one more point, which I didn't make about Maker Camp. Most problems, most crime problems, most waste problems are very specific about, they're highly located, they're highly concentrated by time, by place, by the stuff that's dumped. And one of the things we need to learn to do is to analyse in enormous detail what it is, what the specific problem is. I don't think you're going to find some magic formula. I don't think you're going to find something that will solve all your problems. And one of the things that we need to do is to focus on the specific problem and what we can do about the specific problems. It's a bit boring, and it's not very inspiring. But the route to cracking most crime problems, including problems to do with waste disposal and fly tipping, is to try and understand the specifics. Sometimes specific problems disappear. I've looked at Newham's data today. I had a look earlier at the data as it appears on the DEFRA website, and I have to say, I hope it's not as bad as it looked, because the data are a bit of a pickle as they appear historically. So I think it's quite difficult to sort some of your problems out. You had, for example, 4,586 incidents on footpaths and bridleways in 2015 to 2016, but you didn't have any in any other year between 2013 and 2022, and that just doesn't ring true. So I wonder if there is an issue about getting the data better. And when I looked at some of the data year by year, it fluctuates in ways which are entirely implausible. And I quite rightly gave you the national picture, which you can get from the DEFRA website. They publish an annual report.
Professor Telly, you've got 1 minute remaining.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. So most of the rest, I think have come home. The key to successfully dealing with these sorts of problems is to focus on the specifics. Try and highlight particular problems. Try and map the problem across the borough. Try and figure out where the problems are most concentrated, what sorts of things are causing most hassle, and try and do something about it. Trying to do something about them. And in trying to do something about it, try and increase the risk to fly tippers, increase the effort for fly tippers, or make it easier. Remind them, try and avoid being provocative, which is easy to be in terms of fly tipping by not making it easy to dispose of goods conveniently, and remind people where necessary of the rules that relate to fly tipping so that they are unlikely to do it at the point at which they're most likely to do it. I've got some more slides which...
Thank you, Professor Telly.
Okay, that's fine.
Are there any questions from members to Professor Telly?
There's a brief reading list for those who feel...
Thank you very much, Professor Telly. Okay. Are there any questions from members to Professor Telly?
Hi there. Thank you very much for that insightful diagnostic prognosis, and I was appreciative of the 80-20 rule point that you suggest that we need to keep in mind. I wanted to understand whether or not there's anything in the science of, behavioural science, you talked in the language of there being no panacea, and what's the role of behavioural science, crudely put nudge theory, in this space, and have you seen it work successfully?
Well, Anna talked about nudge theory. There are some examples of nudges which are referred to in some of the literature. Let me give an example of a successful initiative. One of the problems that can exist is that of building waste that's dumped illegally, not just in council places, but also in private places. One of the reasons why building waste was dumped is that the people who collected it were paid on collecting it from the building site, from the construction sites. The problem was pretty much eliminated when the payment was made when it was delivered to a legitimate site. So a very simple change in a set of procedures can produce a large effect on the rate of the unwanted behaviour. I noticed when I looked at the Newham data that there had been a reduction in the amount of waste year on year that was dumped in alleyways. I suspect, but don't know, that that's a function of the fact that alleys have been closed for burglary prevention purposes. But if you reduce access to alleyways for burglary prevention purposes, a side benefit is that it becomes more difficult for for waste to be illegally dumped there. So you see in that case a decline in the data, not necessarily because of any initiatives that was deliberately put in place, but that's a byproduct of a changed way of designing that kind of space. So on the whole, the effects are brought about by changing designs and procedures and designs in space. When we took the sandwiches down to the beach, rather than giving them at the top of the camp, we were changing a procedure. We were changing a procedure which no longer meant that problematic behaviour was going to take place. It's these sorts of ways of looking at problems where opportunities are the focus rather than trying to change the people, which have turned out to be most effective in dealing with most problems, including dealing with waste.
Thank you, Mayor Roxana Fiaz.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for members for Professor Tilley? No. Thank you for your time with us, Professor Tilley. I am now moving to item 9, a report entitled Building a Fair Newham, Delivering a Clean Borough. The report is outlined on pages 33 to 48 of the agenda. And I now ask Councillor James Arthur to move this report. Councillor Arthur, you have 5 minutes.
To adjust that so you can hear me. Thank you, Chair. Tonight's theme for Council is on something that is of significance to the Council, of great importance to the residents and the businesses and visitors to Newham. Keeping the borough clean and investing in our streets is always a challenging part of the Council's work in all councils. 13 years of austerity have hit councils hard in their ability to tackle frontline services, and we all face a challenge to improve our boroughs with the resources that we have available. But we know we have challenges specific to Newham. It is to meet these challenges and the expectations of residents that we've been investing in our waste and cleaning services, in our workforce and our equipment. The investment has been in a number of ways. In the last few years, we have brought street cleaning services back in-house in a single borough-wide service, invested in new uniforms for staff, invested in new street cleaning equipment to make the frontline staff work easier and more effective, rolled out new revised street cleaning strategies with new rounds and new ways of working that is being implemented at the moment, invested in new drain cleaning equipment, new gum busting kit to clean our pavements, new bin lorries that will be more reliable and have modern electric bin lifts to reduce the noise during collections, expanded the amount of waste that can be recycled, removed the worst fly-tipped recycling points, and we're investing in the remaining ones to make them tidier and cleaner. There are more changes to come. We are bringing in new vehicles for gritting and tackling winter conditions on pavements and bike lanes, additional vehicles to meet growing demand for the waste service, modernising our mechanical sweepers, moving to weekly recycling collections to meet our commitment to increase the amount we recycle and meet the residents' demands for more recycling opportunities, changing collection on waste from flats above shops to reduce the waste and the time it is left on high streets, investing in IT and digitisation, and focusing on building a greater circular economy. Fly tipping, we know, is a particular challenge and frustration for residents. We've already implemented a number of changes to tackle this. Working with Keep Britain Tidy and residents focus groups, we introduced messaging around smaller fly tips in residential areas, which were from where domestic waste was left on the street, that saw big drops in the areas targeted. We've changed the way we tackle fly tipping on private land. Many of the public areas in the borough are owned and maintained by other agencies or groups, putting these outside council control. We are now clearing these areas anyway, then working with the landowner over costs, speeding up the clearance rates on privately owned public areas. We've also run public awareness campaigns, both through advertising and on-street campaigning, which we'll be updating and rerunning over future months. We're also focusing on enforcement, tackling people who deliberately mess up our streets or don't make the effort to find out how to remove things properly. In the last year, we've had on-street wardens tackling fly tips, littering, and focusing on the proper disposal of trade waste. This has successfully seen the increase in the numbers of PICS penalty notices issued. And we're now going through procurement to extend that work and to further enhance the powers it has to tackle fly tips, ensuring that those dumping on our streets face the consequences of their actions. It was a commitment in our manifesto to cut reported fly tips by 50%, and despite some scepticism of the wisdom of making a clear, precise, bold promise like that, is one we are committed to and one we will deliver on. A key to the delivery is in community engagement. It is too easy, and Newham has been guilty of this in the past, of being about delivering for people rather than delivering with people. The changes we have seen and improvements we have made have been working with residents from small community groups and groups of residents who have wanted to help in their area. Through our communities team, we've been supporting local people who want to do litter picks in their area with equipment and helping remove the rubbish collected. Through the community assemblies, we've been supporting projects to improve local areas that will help design out opportunities for fly tipping, such as murals and community gardens and other projects. We're keen to continue to work with the community to engage on a very local level, and we continue to look to find ways to provide that support.
Councillor, so you have 1 minute remain.
Thank you. Before concluding, I want to thank our staff who invest a huge amount of time and energy into delivering for our residents. Feedback on the value that someone has in their local street sweeper and what they add to their area is a testament to their work. The work, too, of staff across departments in the waste, parks and community services all helps in delivering this, and their work is valued and appreciated by both the council and by residents. There is more I could talk about and more in the report, and more that we want to do and will do, but the clock is against me. We are determined to continue to improve the state of the borough, to get the streets cleaner, and to do so in a way that continues to make the borough a more sustainable place as well. Continuing to invest in our services, to refocus how they work, and to continue the programme of modernisation. Working together across communities, with businesses and with residents. This is how we will deliver a cleaner, greener borough, and one with a focus on a community working together. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Miraz Patel.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it brief, given my colleague's response, Councillor Ass's response, has been fairly comprehensive. I'd just like to actually comment on the fantastic progress that has been made to date in delivering our Clean Borough ambitions, including the reductions in fly tip and improvements in the Council's Keep Britain Tidy street cleanliness performance, which we heard about earlier. I can also go on, but for the interest of time, I won't bore members, but thank you very much.
Thank you. We now move to the debate. Does any members wish to speak? Councillor Rachel Tripp.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Asser and his team for the work that's been done. So much done and still so much more to do. I've had comments recently from several residents in my ward worried about the use of chemicals and pesticides in our spraying and wondering whether we might look in future to reduce the use of these, both in terms of encouraging biodiversity and also thinking about the impact on climate change that use of these chemicals has.
Councillor Mahmood Mirza.
Thank you, Councillor James, taking very good initiatives. But I think the figures you have given, the reduced reporting and fly tipping is not correct, because people get fed up reporting. You know, you go every other day, same place, same morning, same place, you find a fly tip again. So people get fed up with reporting and reporting and reporting from the same fly tipping point, and nothing has been done in the borough. I think there is a reason behind this. Local government is not serious about it, and we do need someone to take, free bulky waste collection again. So there's a lot of people here who can't afford to take the rubbish to the Jingle lanes, and a lot of people here, cost of living crisis, can't able to pay £20 cost. And there's a lot of people, it's kind of a transit borough, people coming and going. Most of the fly tip you see is associated with the beds, mattresses, household rubbish. So if you kindly, you picking up free from the street anyway. Why can't you give an opportunity to the residents to, live in the front garden, to keep the streets clean, and you can pick up from the front garden rather than, letting them in the night time, they're putting in next door neighbors. Why can't you give them an opportunity?
Thank you,
to take it from
Councillor
there?
Mohammed
Thank you.
Mirza. Councillor Jenny Skilling.
It's great to see the administration is beginning to recognise the scale of anger that's built up in Newham's communities about the state of our streets and public realm under Labour's watch. It was hard to miss during the recent by-elections, and it shouldn't take a historic by-election loss for this administration to finally get the message. We should have regular reporting of the work done to cleaning up our streets and to support Newham's circular economy, not just when anger reaches boiling point. The report does contain points of actions taken to clean up our streets. I would be surprised if this was yet felt by many residents. Certainly the residents we speak to can't seem to understand why our streets are so much dirtier than streets in other boroughs. There is such inequality in the cleanliness experienced by residents in different parts of the borough. It is shocking there is nothing in the report addressing this. Cherry-picked statistics which don't reflect the lived experience of residents we represent don't make our streets any cleaner. It is also utterly astounding that there is nothing in this report about the impact of Labour's counterproductive, punitive policy to charge residents for bulky waste collection during the cost of living crisis. Shame on this council. There's no excuse for fly tipping, but when many residents in Newham do not have access to a car and are in insecure, high turnover tenancies, it's not surprising when faced with a £22 fee, residents look for another option. This also leads to other residents following suit. Booking should not be a chore nor a bore and as convenient as possible. As a borough, why do we always seem to be 10 years behind? It so often takes this borough gaining a reputation nationally for action to be considered. And still then, when action is taken, we seem to only do half the job. Take glass recycling. This was only introduced a couple of years ago. Why do so many of the communal bins in Newham still loudly display not to recycle glass? An issue which Green Councillor Higgins has been pressing on. Why did we not also
Councillor Skilling, go one
introduce
minute.
food waste collection or even do the groundwork to prepare for it? The promised trial is still lacking in detail of time commitment. We know this is necessary to meet your own Labour Mayor of London's target to reduce food waste by 50% per person and to meet our upcoming legal obligations. This can't be half-assed or introduced at the last minute. When presented with figures stating fly tipping has dropped, could this just be because people have lost trust in this council even to report it? Residents tell us they've repeatedly seen the reports closed without actions being taken. As I said, we will support today's report because we're committed to fighting for a greener, cleaner, safer Newham. But there's so much more to be done, and we will keep taking every opportunity to fight for it.
Thank you. Councillor Mumtaz Khan.
Thank you, Chair. I think my colleague here hasn't been here for long because we have been working very hard to keep Newham tidy. The council takes keeping Newham tidy very serious, and therefore 3.3 behavioural changes activities and partnering up with Britain Tidy clearly states it's evidence-based and we are committed to keep Newham tidy. And everyone here have heard our children, our community is actually committed now because they know that we have to keep Newham tidy. Thank you.
Councillor John Morris.
Chair, Council, I'd like to thank Councillor Assa and Patel for all of their hard work, as well as all the employees from Environmental Services, I would like to congratulate the Council on its Better Streets programme, a behavioural change initiative that has seen a reduction of fly tipping by up to 72% and winning the Local Government Chronicle Award for Environmental Services. I applaud the Council's successful bid for an intervention grant from the Department of Environmental and Rural Affairs, which has seen the installation of 7 recycling banks, which has seen a reduction in fly tipping by 23%. I support the Council's commitment to environmental enforcement. Since autumn 2022, the Council has given out over 26,000 fixed penalty notices for offences that spoiled our environment. And over 1,000 of these were for fly tipping. I'd like to commend the Council on its emphasis on supporting community-driven projects such as murals and community gardens, which have seen a reduction of fly tipping of between 25 and 40%. Chair, Council, these policies and positive outcomes they produce are not some abstract populist idea, but a clear, measurable success and proof that the Council is delivering for its residents. Thank you.
Councillor Asser, you have the right of the reply. Should you wish to say anything further, you have up to 3 minutes. Oh, sorry, I think I missed one of the councillors. Oh, Councillor Elizabeth Broker.
Thank you very much, Councillor Asser, for presenting that. It's such a big issue, and I know that all of us here have residents coming to us all the time with this as a problem. So it's really good to have had this paper. And I think that the thing from listening to the evidence that's been given, and particularly from Dr. Scott, about what interventions work and what there is actually evidence for, I think is really important. And so I'm really pleased that we've got a whole raft of things here that we're talking about, rather than just picking up 1 or 2 popular topics that might save us a few pounds, but actually have no real evidence in terms of their effectiveness to deal with the issue. So I'd like to say thank you for that. One of the issues that does come up in Little Ilford is residents asking about CCTV. And I know that's not something that we've been thinking about particularly. However, having heard Dr. Scott's thoughts on that, maybe it's something that we could look at in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Gray.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor John Gray, West Ham Ward. It is, you know, it's a difficult job at being in opposition, so I will say that to the Greens. But please, if you're going to cut something, right, where are you going to get the money from? So if you're going to put charges, take away charges for bulky waste, then you're going to have to cut children's services. Then you have to cut housing services. Then you cut something else. It's the same in the budget. You criticised, but you didn't come up with a single constructive alternative. So please do it. If you're going to cut something in the future, tell us where you're going to cut.
Does any other members wish to speak? Councillor Joshua, then Mandel.
Thank you, Chair. I do commend the report, and I'm grateful to hear that and to have read that Stratford will be part of the trial for some of these innovative methods for tackling litter and fly tipping. But speaking as a resident, I don't think that any resident would think that the local authority has ever done enough to tackle litter and fly tipping. As a resident, as someone who lives on a council estate, many of us would always want the council to do more. But something that our colleague Councillor Gray raised, and it's very pertinent, is that every pound that we spend on clearing up the streets, on clearing up litter, on picking up fly tipping, is taxpayers' money. It's our money, it's our residents' money, it's not a bottomless pit of finances, and we do have a duty, looking to my estate, to do our bit, and there are people on my estate that do our bit, and we do mop the hallways, and we do pick up the rubbish when it has been spilled and when the wind has blown it, and there are some that don't. And yes, we'd all love to be in a position financially where the local authority, as if it's this unnamed blob, can just do everything, but it just simply can't. We have got to be in a position where money is spent effectively and sensibly, and Dr. Scott was quite right to bring us the evidence to prove that free bulky waste collection does not reduce fly tipping. We trialled it in Newham. It cost £850,000 for that 1-year trial. That, thanks to inflation and the current economy, would be a lot more expensive today, and it did nothing to reduce fly tipping. So we will and we should, and this report says that we are going to make it easier as a local authority for people to report and arrange for bulky waste collection, and that we're going to deploy our services effectively so that litter is cleared more efficiently. But it doesn't mean that we can keep dipping into taxpayers' pockets to pay to pick up the waste of people who don't bother to put it in the bin. Behavioural change is where we're really going to see a difference as a borough, and I'm pleased to see that we're investing in it. Thank you.
Councillor Madeline. Councillor Madeline.
Point of order, Chair. Can I move standing orders by 30 minutes? Now. From 9 to 9:30, so basically extending to standing orders by, so suspending standing orders for 30 minutes.
So we continue till 9:30, yeah?
That's right, yes.
Is that agreed by the members? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
It may surprise you, but I didn't intend to speak this evening. Madeleine Sarli-Ponting, Councillor for Forest Gate South. I wanted to commend our colleagues in the Cabinet, within the Council in general, and very much so our Council employees who work tirelessly to try and ensure that our borough is as clean as possible. One thing I did pick up from the questions from the Greens and from Councillor Mirza was very much that they're not looking at the information that we were given today by independent people. The Council is aware that fly tipping is something that not only concerns us personally as residents and people that work in the borough, but very much concerns our fellow residents. We are very aware that within the 13 years of austerity that we have suffered under this current government, which has cut and cut and cut council budgets while the council continues to try and keep the council tax within the borough one of the lowest within North East London, that we do have stark choices. The £800,000 for free bulk collections, or actually paying for things like supporting food banks, is a choice that the council has to make, and it is one of those difficult choices that we do have to balance for our residents, for all of our residents, for their needs as well as the needs of the future. We want to make sure that whilst we ourselves are striving to do the best with the money that we have and to spend it wisely for the benefit of all of our residents, that we are actually continuing to ensure that we hold ourselves to a stretch and challenge, to high aims and visions, that we want to make the borough better for everybody, not just ensure that all of our primary school children have free school dinners, that we give money to food banks, and that we forward the...
You have half a minute.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll leave that bit for now, okay? We have been judged not only by higher standing academics, but by national organisations which have given us awards for our work in this area, okay, but also, as we have seen from Dr. Scott tonight, by independent charities that we have invited in to judge us and to audit the work that we do. It's not us just saying that we are trying our best. It is these independent organisations, charities and academics that are saying that Newham is working hard and making positive effects. I know as a resident we still feel that we can do a lot and that there is still a lot to be done. But we have to remember it is not the council going around in a van throwing out litter onto the streets.
Thank you, Councillor Madeline.
Okay. It is us in our homes. It is our neighbours, our friends and our relatives. And we must work hard and not just leave it to our council employees to actually help make change. Thank you.
Councillor Ned Higgins.
Councillor Nate Higgins, Stratford Olympic Park. Carrying on a theme, I also wasn't intending to speak on this, but it's just kind of amazing to hear a councillor shout cuts and cuts and that we want to cut. I just want to remind council that the only councillors in this room that voted for cuts were Labour councillors. Greens voted against cuts. We are an anti-cuts party and we will vote against cuts at every opportunity. It's also just incredible to hear councillors claim, oh, we have the cheapest council tax, some of the cheapest council tax in London, when we know that if it were up to the administration, that wouldn't be the case. They're increasing it by as much as they're legally allowed to. So it's, you talk of difficult decisions, but you're claiming credit for things that you don't have control over. It was it's years and years and years of previous administrations not increasing it that have left us where we are now, not today's choices. And the final thing I wanted to say is, people watching this, listening to all of these mighty words from councillors who think they know better than the public, I'm sure they'll feel reassured during this cost of living crisis to be told, no, there's no money for this service, keep paying these punitive charges. We disagree with that and we'll keep making that case. Thank you.
Councillor Pushpa Makura.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Pushpa Makwana, Pratchett Ward. I would say, first thing I would like to raise, how many people have got smartphones? If you've got smartphone, get the residents to upload their Love Clean Street app, which is very important because we have had few residents complaining that they've had fly tipping rubbish outside their houses, and it's been there for a week. So if they had an app, they would have reported straight away. So I would urge the residents to have that app. Is very important. I'm sure they can add one app on the phone. So residents also has complained that when we call the council, we do not get no answers from the comms. Never get, yeah. And so I would urge all the residents to have an app to report it themselves as well, because it's important. Not every councillor will be able to pick the emails up every single day, and you must remember that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay. Does any other members wish to speak? No? Councillor Asser, you have the right to reply. Should you wish to say anything further, you have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'll try and cover the questions and some of the points that have been raised. Councillor Tripp, yes, is one thing we're looking at in terms of pesticides. We've already cut them out of the work we do in parks. We are looking at how we can work that on streets, but we want to get a balance to make sure we are on top of the problems. We looked at other places where they've done this, and it has backfired in terms of there's a balance about making sure we can maintain it. So that's something we're studying carefully. Councillor Booker, CCTV, I think as we heard, problem we have is that it doesn't necessarily stop people who are putting the household waste out, which is a significant proportion. There is obviously a deterrent element, but there is a cost with that. It does work if you've got the man with the van doing the fly tipping, but I think we'll look at what they've said tonight and have a look at how we can balance that, and they did say that comes with signage, which we're already doing. I'm coming on to Mr. Merzer's comments, because the figures are drawn up by the staff, so unless you're telling the staff are making stuff up, I realise it doesn't fit in with what you want to hear, but life is full of disappointments like that, I'm afraid. When you run political campaigns, they can't always necessarily work for you in terms of the facts and figures. You asked Keep Britain Tidy about free bulky waste, and they made it very clear. It's not a panacea that you have been campaigning on. I am sorry that it's going to spoil your campaign by getting facts from the experts that don't agree with you, but it isn't. We tried it here. The costs doubled. It made no impact on the numbers of fly tips. What it did do was reduce the amount going to Jenkins Lane and reduce the amount that was going to charity shops, which is something I think the Greens would be interested in circular economy. And your idea that sticking your waste in your front garden and someone will come and pick it up is, A, what the cost will be. You've not costed it. It will spiral. And if you wish to trash the borough, telling people just chuck crap in your front garden is the quickest way to do it. So I'm sorry, you are simply wrong on that. I have to say, it would almost be as mad as going around spray painting the streets and then costing us to clear it up afterwards, but nobody would be that stupid, I'm sure. Just to come on to the Greens, and there was a lot of anger there which I didn't quite believe, because some of these things are things they have never raised before, are jumping slightly onto the back of the independent councillors' issue. I'm not going to go over the bulky wasting if they've just heard it, but I'm not aware they've ever raised it before. There was, I mean, I have to say, Councillor Higgins, this idea that, you know, you are the party fighting against cuts. I was in Brighton when you got elected there first time on your No Cuts manifesto. The first thing you did was make cuts, including on things like public transport measures.
So we have 24 seconds.
So I think, frankly, you know, let's look at your record in office in Brighton, where you've just been kicked out massively for actually screwing up the borough, leaving a load of debt, and having the worst recycling rate in the southeast, which you were unable to deliver on. So it's very easy to make these cheap political points. I'm doing them now, and make these nice green speeches, but frankly, actually delivering it is something different. And if you're interested in the issue around government and food waste, I'll happily discuss it scrutiny. It's detailed, it's interesting, but we can get down by that. If I may just finish on the two councillors I haven't mentioned, Councillor Sally-Pond and Councillor Makwana, who made points. The issue around working with residents is hugely important, and I think they're right on doing so.
Can you now move to the recommendation which are outlined on pages 34 of the published agenda? All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. All those against, please raise your hands. Any abstentions? The report has been approved. I'm now moving to item 10, petitions. Are there any petitions by the members? Can I remind all members that petition at the meeting must be in line with the theme of the meeting? Councillor Denny Skilling.
I have a petition of 6,359 signatures to, under respect and protect Queen's Market. It's not just a landmark, but a community asset, and valued by so many traders, they must feel the security too.
Although the petition does not meet the theme of the meeting tonight, I am accepting the petition, and this will be submitted to the relevant corporate directors. Councillor Mohammed Mirza.
Chair, I've got a petition from the residents of Tudor Road in my ward for resurfacing a street. Thank you.
I'm now moving to item 11, members' questions. Under Rules 26 of Part 4.1 of the Constitution, I can inform the Chamber that here have been 9 questions received and accepted by the interim Chief Executive. The questions with the published responses can be seen from pages 5 to 11 on the supplementary agenda, water paper published earlier today. Can I remind you that in accordance with the 26.7 of the Council rules, there will be a time limit for 40 minutes of members' questions. A question each from Councillors Shantu Ferdous, Arik Chaudhry, and Louis Godfrey, plus 2 each from the Councillors Belgica Guana, Ned Higgins, and Danny Killing. To assist the Council in this process, we will introduce the following procedures. In accordance with the Council Constitution, each member to ask their question or to confirm as published, all members will be given a verbal response to their questions by the appropriate member, but can request as published. This is to allow the Council to progress the agenda on this occasion. Under Council Procedures Rule 26.5, any supplementary questions asked must arise directly out of the initial question or reply, and members must pose those questions appropriately and not seek to make a statement. Should members fail to adhere these requirements, I will intervene to stop them. There will be a time limit for 40 minutes on members' questions with no extension of time, and questions not dealt with this time will be dealt with by written responses. Question number 1. I call upon Councillor Belgica Guana to ask questions. I call upon Councillor James Arthur to respond to the questions or to confirm as published. Thank you, Councillor, sir. Councillor Guana, do you have any supplementary question? Thank you. Question 2, I call upon Councillor Guana to ask their second question. I call upon James. Would you like to ask second questions? No. I call upon Councillor James Arthur to respond to the question or confirm as published. Thank you, Councillor James Arthur. Councillor Guana, do you have any supplementary question? Thank you. Question 3, I call upon Councillor Shantu Ferdous to ask their question.
Good evening all. Councillor Shantu for East Ham. Thanks to this administration for working hard, but there is always room to improve. My question to Councillor colleague James Arthur, who is our statutory Deputy Mayor and Cabinet Member for Environment and Sustainable Transport. Many of our busy High Street and well-known local business areas such as East Ham High Street, Green Street, Upton Lane, Plush Road and Stratford Broadway, while resident shops often throw their rubbish in the public litter bin, causing them to overflow quickly. We hear from the shop owners and residents that Albion rubbish collection team is not consistent enough in collecting litter bins from street regularly. As elected representatives, we would like to ensure that our borough is kept clean. Therefore, can Albion install public black litter bins with a larger capacity or provide more on those busier streets and ensure those litter bins are collected on time to prevent overflow? Thank you.
I call upon Councillor James Arthur to respond to the questions or confirm as published. Thank you, Councillor James Arthur. Councillor Ferdous, do you have any supplementary question? Thank you. Question 4, I call upon Councillor Arik Chaudhry to ask first question.
When a pensioner feeds the birds in their local park, they are not committing an act of fly tipping. Rather, they are doing something which they consider to be kind to nature and soothing to their own mental health. I was disappointed, therefore, to learn of cases of elderly residents in Canning Town North being fined £150 for feeding the birds in Star Park under the charge of fly tipping. During a cost of living crisis, this seems particularly unfair. I have no doubt there are good reasons for the public to not feed birds, however, these fines seem punitive. Will the Council consider reviewing fines given for this reason over the past 12 months? And if they can't be refunded, will they commit to putting up clear signage across all parks in Newham explaining the penalties and rationale for not feeding the birds?
I call upon Councillor Amar Bharti to respond to the question or to confirm as published. Thank you, Councillor Bharti. Councillor Chaudhary, do you have any supplementary question?
Yes. So thank you very much for the published response, for which I'm grateful. I've been told that enforcement officers are essentially paid by commission. The more fines issued, the more money they receive. Can the Council confirm whether or not this is the case? And if so, will it consider whether there are bad incentives at play, which may lead to enforcement officers pursuing maximum penalties for the vulnerable instead of focusing on the more pernicious and discreet fly tippers?
Thank you. Councillor Bharti, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. It's not something I could confirm at this moment in time that I'm aware of, but it's something I can go away and look back into. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bharti. Question 5, I call upon Councillor Denny Killing to ask their first question.
What proportion of waste disposed of in bins in Newham's public realm is reused, recycled in order to support Newham's circular economy?
I call upon Councillor James Asso to respond to the question or to confirm as published. Thank you, Councillor Asso. Councillor Killing, do you have a supplementary question?
Will the Council commit to upgrading all the public realm bins to dual bins, so rather than just domestic?
Thank you. Councillor Asso, do you wish to respond?
It's something we've done in the past, and it didn't particularly work. We ended up with dual bins filled with rubbish, and you kind of end up with contamination. It's something we'll keep reviewing and looking at, particularly in some of the areas. I think there's potential. It's been a while since we've done it, and I think it's potential that we've moved on in terms of the general recycling debate. I think once we've moved also to weekly recycling, and the kind of pattern of doing more recycling kicks in, we'll be able to work it. But there's always a balance. One of the other things we'll look at as part of the kind of review of the contract, which councillors may be aware is now started for the new waste contract, is looking at how we increase recycling across the board. And so measures within that is something we can pick up, but it's something we're aware of, need to pick up. But what we don't want to do is end up with lots of contamination, because so there's a degree of targeting, but it's something we're reviewing.
Thank you, Councillor Asso. Question 6, I call upon Councillor Denny Killing to ask their second question.
According to mapping experts, terrace list, just 11% of Newham is covered by trees, making us one of the worst London boroughs. The recent simultaneous heat and pollution warnings could be partially addressed by improving tree cover, contributing to building a cleaner Newham. What percentage of Newham will be covered by 2026?
I call upon Councillor Asso to respond to the question or to confirm as published. Thank you, Councillor Asso. Councillor Denny, do you have a supplementary question?
There are many sites where trees are missing due to bad weather and other many reasons, and there's empty plots on people's roads. Is it possible that if residents were to report that, if we can get them replaced, or do the council do this on inspecting when they inspect roads?
Thank you, Councillor Asso. Do you wish to respond?
mean, in terms of reporting for empty tree pits and things, yes, please tell us. Council has already contacted me about that, and I get lots in my ward, and I always pass them through to the team. It comes in perhaps to your wider point about the total number of trees is we haven't set a target. What we've done where we have been planting is we've been very lucky in terms of grants from things like the Forestry Commission, and we're always applying for more. So if we can get the more money we can get, the more we'll invest in. We are prioritising when we're doing street trees the empty tree pits because they are the quickest and cheapest to do. There are obviously other roads, we've had residents contact us where they don't have those and it would require more work. We want more trees, we want more street trees particularly. The point you make I think is very valid about potential climate change and the heating up. Street trees do reduce the overall temperature. We do need to balance this out with maintenance. I've probably got the leafiest ward. I spent a lot of time dealing with the fact that there was a mass tree planting in the 80s, which now requires, so we are trying to bear in mind the amount it will take to ongoing maintenance so we don't lose control of them. And we do face potential challenges. A lot of the trees we've planted in the past suffered last year because of the extreme heat wave. And if that comes, we may need to start to review what kind of trees we're planting because some of the ones we've got are vulnerable to that, whereas traditionally in London they fitted in. So it's a kind of a juggle for what we're trying to put together, but we are aiming to get more street trees and more trees in parks. But certainly if residents have got roads where they want to see them filled in, please do report them and send them through, and we add them to the lists as we're rolling it out.
Thank you, Councillor Asser. Question 7, finally I call upon Councillor Annette Higgins to ask their first question. As table. I call upon Councillor Asser to respond to the question to confirm or to confirm as published. Oh, thank you, Councillor Asser. Councillor Higgins, do you have a supplementary question on that one? Thank you. Question 8, I call upon Councillor Annette Higgins to ask the second question.
I don't know whether I need to say this, but I will just in case. I'm a member of Unite. I'm about to ask a question about Unite. I just think I should say that just in case I need to. My question is, members of the Unite Union at Folkestone Road Depot have been balloted and have voted again for strike action, leaving us set for further strikes in our waste service. Greens unequivocally back our public service workers who strike for fair pay and conditions. During last year's strike, our valued bin workers reported being denied access to toilets during pickets, and it was reported that contractors who joined the strikes had their contracts cancelled. This treatment of our bin workers fundamentally undermines the efforts to keep our borough clean and is simply unjust. Will the Cabinet member commit to no repeat of this horrible abuse of our valued council workers?
I call upon Councillor James Asser to respond to the questions, to confirm as published. Thank you, Councillor Asser. Councillor Higgins, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, and just for the benefit of those listening, the published answer has no response in relation to the contracts being cancelled. So again, I'm going to ask, will you commit to contractors not having contracts cancelled?
Thank you. Councillor Asser, do you want to respond then?
I'm not going to get into a discussion. So the strike ballot that's been held is on national pay agreements, which is a negotiation at a national level, not a local level. I am not going to get into a discussion with you on those discussions and the issues around strike and how those work. That is a discussion for the management and for the shop stewards. I have faith in the management and I have faith in the shop stewards to be able to do that. You're shaking your head, but that is the way that... I'm sorry, it's no good interrupting me with what sounded like muttering swear words at me, but...
I didn't swear.
It sounded like it. I'm sorry if you didn't. Look, I'm very pleased you have now got involved in trade unions. As a long-standing trade unionist, I'm very pleased you're now on board with this, because I understand that you hadn't joined a trade union until you actually became a council candidate. And I'm very pleased you're a member of Unite. As a long-standing member of Unite, so am I. A bit surprised to find that only a couple of years ago you were posting things, I dislike Unite due to their obsession with Labour politics. And I doubt much will change with their new General Secretary, also the politics represented by some of their leading voices. As a member of Unite and his predecessor for 27 years, I take exception to that. I'm glad you're now on board with trade unionism, but I'm not going to join in what is on your behalf probably yet another political stunt.
Finally, I'll call upon Councillor Louis Godfrey to ask their question. I call upon Councillor James Arthur to respond to the questions or to confirm as published. John Morris. Sorry. Could you confirm as published, or would you like to respond to the question? Published. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor John Morris. Do you have any supplementary questions, Councillor Louis Godfrey? Thank you. Thank you. I'm now moving to item 12, question by the public. There are 2 questions from members of the public accepted under Rules 29 of the part of 4.1 of the Constitution. In accordance to the Constitution Rules 29.2, 20 minutes of the Council time is allocated to questions. The questions along with the response are attached on the supplementary agenda order paper published earlier today, to be found on pages 13 and 14. Please note, neither questioner had requested to ask the question in person. So thank you. That concludes this item, and I will now move to the next item. I'm now moving to item 13, Overview Scrutiny Programme and Future Commissions. Councillor McMillan, do you have updates you wish to provide to the Council this evening? If so, we have up to 5 minutes to present, with another 5 minutes allocated to total for posing and answers questions. Councillor McMillan to address the Council for 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I intended to give a brief summary, but given the time constraint, I would just like to inform Council that in the coming months, we will be meeting as a budget commission to be looking at the Council's budget for next year and the in-year spend. And the reasons for this is that all of us as Council would know that our budget positions does need detailed scrutiny, and it is incumbent upon us as overviewing scrutiny to keep a keen eye on the Council and to be holding the executive to account. Another thing I would like to inform Council about is that over the last few months in the summer, overviewing scrutiny and the committees as a whole have been constrained. Our work has been constrained by the staffing situation. This is being temporarily resolved, but it must be resolved permanently. If it's not, then I'm afraid our work program is at risk of not being delivered. So I just want to bring Council up to date. We are doing everything possible, and officers and the executive is working with us to address the situation. If it's not resolved, then at a next briefing, I would let you know, because obviously you do not, as we do not want to see our work programs suffer. I won't say much in terms of the upcoming programs, or the directorates are aware of what we are doing, and at the next meeting, with enough time, I should be bringing you fully up to date on what we've done and will be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McMillan. I'm now moving to item 14, speeches from members. In accordance with Part 4, Rules of Procedures of the Council's Constitution, paragraph 18.4, I have agreed to a speech from Councillor Danny Killing. Councillor Danny Killing, you have up to 5 minutes. I remind Council there will be no debate after the speech.
Residents across the borough care for their communities and have a firm drive to keep Newham clean. I've seen this in regular litter picks that take place by local communities across the borough, and I'm sure members also share that experience. and we're all proud to support these actions. But we cannot ignore the fact that the council is not playing its part in supporting them. The levels of litter across the borough is unacceptable. Overflowing public bins are a regular sight, and we see abandoned bulky waste, which is usually unsafe and a fire risk. It's embarrassing and shameful that we still are charging for this bulky waste collection, even if it's convenient as possible, if it's our fault for something which is damp and mouldy, and somebody has to get rid of their mattress in a cost of living crisis, they are now having to put on top of that a £22 charge. At a time when rents are becoming ever more unaffordable and the temporary accommodation crisis worsens across the country, we must have the foresight to offer the bulky waste collection free of charge, as many neighbouring boroughs do. Fly-tipped waste is harder to reuse and recycle, and if we're serious about the circular economy, a policy such as this will take us towards the goal, while also bringing residents along with us. Our commitment to a cleaner borough must also fit into a wider holistic approach of supporting the needs of workers across Newham. As Councillor Higgins and I did last year throughout the refuse worker strikes, we're proud to continue to stand unequivocally in support of the workers who are fighting for fair pay and conditions. Even more concerning are the reports voiced by Demet Karabat of bullying and sex abuse of staff within the council, and we call for a transparent investigation into these allegations. This fits into a broader picture of concerning employment tribunals involving Newham Council and the staff at Newham City Farm, and we're worried that this points to a wider systemic problem of worker abuse in our borough. Fair treatment staff is the very least that this institution deserves. We as a borough are committed to a just transition, one in which members of all our communities are brought along with us to fight for a cleaner future. We should never lose sight of our responsibility to uphold fair conditions for those who work in our borough. Recycling levels have always been an area of the interest to Greens. In Stratford Olympic Park, Councillor Higgins and I have implemented great communication around the glass recycling. We are currently pushing for a carton and Tetra Pak recycling point in line with our commitment to the circular economy. We hope to see a firm commitment from the Council implementing a food waste collection trial next year, and have been asking for its rollout since we were elected. Its repeated delay is a demonstration of the pitfalls of committing to long-term private finance initiatives, rather than being able to make sound decisions based on democracy. We are at the mercy of corporate interests under East London Waste Authority until at least 2027. How can we as members be assured that we will reach our legal obligations around food waste disposal and carton recycling by 2025, when we cannot take full control of the decisions affecting it? We call for a written response on how this problem will be addressed. As Greens, we celebrate actions to clean up our borough, and we will always provide tough but fair opposition. I'm also delighted by the turnout from the public earlier and the people of Newham's commitment for pushing for transparent democracy. I'd like to voice support for the residents campaigning and attending tonight. With a climate crisis endangering our planet, we have no time to waste on introducing these bold policies, such as a free bulky waste collection. And our motion demanding a circular economy this evening, which we won't
Councillor Denny, you have half a minute left.
will serve to enrich Newham's work in this area, driving us towards an ambitious plan to clean our borough and protect our futures. Nothing less than the residents of Newham deserve.
Thank you. I'll now move to the next item. We've got 9 minutes. Now moving to item 15, motions. There will be one motion to be considered for this meeting from Councillor Ned Higgins on Circular Economy Action Plan. I'll remind members of the Council Procedures Rules. 19 points of order. This relates to an alleged breach of the Council Rules of Procedures of the law. 20, personal explanation. This is applied to the members who considers they have been misquoted or misunderstood. In order to facilitate the meeting where an amendment has been made by the proposer, I suggest it moved as a part of the motion. The motion, I call upon Councillor Ned Higgins to propose his motion, which is outlined on pages 5 to 8 on the published agenda. Councillor Higgins, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Just make this a bit higher. So I brought this motion today because in my year as a councillor so far, I've noticed that sadly there's been little scrutiny given to Newham's circular economy and the necessary efforts to support it. It can be used as a buzzword here and there, but there's not yet been a concrete action plan presented to councillors, and we've not had the opportunity to scrutinise action on it through reports to full council like we've seen with the climate emergency. Greens have always said that the solutions to the cost of living crises are the same as the solutions to our climate and nature crises. That's why this motion makes that link, and I hope councillors will support the motion. Newham has the opportunity to lead the way on this, particularly in relation to our construction industry. But we're being left in the dust by boroughs like Islington, who have already developed and are putting into place a circular economy action plan. Cities like Glasgow and Wolverhampton have signed the European Circular Cities Declaration, and we have the chance to be the first London borough to do so. It seems there's been a bit of a habit from some of seeing this as the East London Waste Authority's responsibility. But that authority is chaired and vice-chaired by Labour councillors and has a majority of Labour councillors sitting on it. The successes and failure of the work done to support Newham's circular economy are all of our responsibilities, and we must not allow a culture of set and forget to continue in relation to the work of the East London Waste Authority. This is actually noted in the Local Government Association's peer review of the authority, stating that members need to more effectively build collective ownership of decisions and direction. Thankfully, it seems the administration has started to get it, and the report we approve today must be the start and not the end of regular reporting on action taken to support our circular economy. Worryingly, I've discovered that a flagship part of the circular economy plans, the Library of Things, could be about to fail. The Library of Things presents an amazing opportunity to support residents with borrowing useful things for our homes and lives in an affordable and convenient way. We don't yet have one of these in Newham. And when families need cheap access to household equipment more than ever, and when Newham's freelancers and small businesses deserve support with accessing the tools they need to do their jobs, we could be about to let them down. That cannot be allowed to happen. And I want to hear a commitment tonight that Newham's Library of Things will open within the next year as planned. We've also got to stop doing counterproductive things like charging for bulky waste collection. As our speaker said tonight, we've got to make the right thing to do the easiest thing to do, and in my view, therefore, the cheapest thing to do. During a cost of living crisis, it is, no matter what people say, indefensible to charge residents in a borough with low access to cars for disposing of their bulky waste in the right way, and ensuring the service is sufficiently funded to make it easy and convenient to use too. I'm also concerned about the lack of reporting on our plans to meet our legal obligations under the 2021 Environment Act, as I understand them to be, which is to recycle food waste and cartons by 2025. Currently, we only intend to run a food waste trial by then, but I'm also not convinced even that's going to happen at this point. It's red-rated in the corporate plan the last time I saw. I hope tonight, whether this motion is approved or not, we'll hear from the administration a commitment to hold an all-members briefing on this. Lastly, we cannot let vital policies like the deposit return scheme become political footballs. We've seen the UK government utterly undermine the programme led by Green Minister Lorna Slater, MSP, for no reason but because the Tories are sick of losing elections in Scotland. The planned introduction UK-wide is flawed in comparison, leaving out glass containers. This motion calls for Newham to back a fully fledged scheme, including glass containers. I urge members to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Higgins. Is there any seconder for this motion? We only have 4 minutes to deal this matter, so now we can move to the debate. If members have any, if member wish to say anything, each members have 3 minutes. Councillor John Wentworth.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to commend the motion because it raises a number of important issues, though I propose that we don't vote for it because there are a number of unfair criticisms and errors in it, and above all, because of our policies, we think we do not need a dedicated strategy for the Circular Economy Action Plan because of what we're already undertaking. The Circular Economy Action Plan developed by Labour-led Islington Council is cited in the motion. But we don't need to follow this because we're doing a number of important initiatives which maybe not everybody has noticed, but they should have noticed tonight that there were a number of proposals in the Building a Fairer Newham report, and which included some neighbourhood initiatives, whole neighbourhood initiatives that will transform the way the economy works in these areas, given some time. And I would like to say that apart from this, we are recruiting an officer, a green economy lead, to start next month, who part of their work will work with UK's Innovation Agency and UEL on a green economy and a circular economy for Newham. Above all, we have got a report coming in December that will be a just transition plan that will be a comprehensive report on the not only the circular economy.
Councillor John, you have 30 seconds.
Right, I will stop here now and I will.
Can I just remind all members that we have only 1 minute left to conclude this item?
Right, I would like to call for the vote and to recommend that we vote against this motion.
Thank you. All those who in favour, please raise your hand. Sorry?
We've just been asked for a vote on the motion, yeah? So that's what we're moving towards?
As I said,
I'm calling first for a vote on the motion.
It's 9:30. Can I remind all the members, 9:30, we need to conclude the meeting. So therefore, I'm just asking for go straight to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against, please raise your hands. Any abstention? Thank you. That's carried out. Now I declare the meeting closed. Thank you everyone for attending and watching. I hope that you enjoy the rest of the evening.